Hello, everybody. This video is a recorded version of Roseville Electric's workshop on getting current by switching to all electric appliances. For those who weren't able to attend our in-person workshop, we wanted to create this version so that this information could still be accessible for folks to review on their own time. In case this video stays on our website for a bit, I do want to state that we are recording this on September 11th of 2023. And so if you're watching this at a later date, there could be new information available. We'll try to point out what information could change, and most of this is going to be surrounding incentive programs that might change over time. But we do have contact information listed at the end of this presentation. And if you remember the phone number 916-79-POWER, you could always give us a call to check up on any updates with information provided here. You'll hear two presenters during this video, myself, Rachel Marmorstein, and my colleague, Sarah Kaufman. And then we do want to highlight that the purpose of this workshop is to bring new technology to the attention of our residents, as well as incentive offerings, so that as you find yourself needing to replace an appliance, you can make your replacement choice as a well-informed consumer. So next, Sarah Kaufman will get us kicked off by introducing the 4 products we'll be focusing on today.
Thank you, Rachel. There are 4 key appliances you might consider replacing with an all-electric version to eventually transition your home into a home that does not require natural gas. Each of these appliances have a gas option, a traditional electric option, and an energy-efficient electric option. Today we'll be talking about the newest energy-efficient electric options, which includes heat pump technology for HVACs, water heaters and clothes dryers, and induction technology for cooktops. Various yard tools can be all electric as well, such as mowers, leaf blowers, and barbecues. And we have an electric vehicle workshop coming up on October 19th, 2023. And it's possible we will be posting a recording for folks that aren't able to attend in person. So why switch from gas to electric appliances? To start, having an electric appliance allows you to fuel your appliances with renewable energy such as wind and solar. Gas appliances only have one fuel source, a fossil fuel. When you have an electric appliance, you'll power your appliances with Roseville's power content. So you'll see we are currently able to provide a significant amount of our power through renewables in green and large hydropower in blue. And our target as we move into the future is to transition towards providing all of our power primarily through renewables and hydropower. And then I also want to mention that if you have on-site solar, having electric appliances allows you to better utilize that on-site generation you've already invested in when using appliances during solar generating hours. All electric appliances are also a choice to improve health and safety, as you are removing open flames from your home, as well as risks of carbon monoxide poisoning or other harmful emissions. Next, there are some large incentives available at the moment, many of which can be stacked. So for some of the products, we'll discuss how installing the high efficiency electric version may be the cheapest option or similar in cost to the alternative. Electric products offer some incredible energy efficiency, and in turn, you may be able to see some energy cost savings over time, especially with Roseville Electric's low rates. There are some state goals as well that transitioning to all electric appliances helps to achieve. As buildings make up 25% of California's greenhouse gas emissions, all electric appliances moves us closer to the 2045 goal of carbon neutrality, as well as the governor's target of 3 million climate-friendly homes and specifically 6 million heat pumps. This is a very important topic at the moment because we know our electric grid will be getting greener and greener. So as folks purchase appliances that they'll have for 10 to 20 years, we want that fuel source to become greener with time and not locked into a fossil fuel. As we talk through all these all-electric appliances, there will be some important considerations to keep in mind. We've talked about saving money, but it's important to note that if your electric bill goes up after switching to all-electric energy-efficient appliances, that doesn't mean something has gone wrong. If you're adding new electric load, that would be normal for your electric bill to go up. But you could still be seeing overall utility bill savings since you should be paying less in natural gas costs to PG&E. We want to be clear about what we are advising. We are not advocating for switching out a perfectly good gas appliance with all electric. But as your appliances near the end of their expected life, you may want to think about an all electric replacement, especially while incentives are available. We also want to highlight that there are certain factors specific to your home that might make your home not the best candidate for an all-electric appliance, or perhaps too costly to make the transition. We'll talk about some of those scenarios. We want to mention that each incentive has product requirements, so be sure you let your contractors know what programs you're hoping to qualify for. With contractors, it's very important to talk to at least three and get multiple quotes. Certain contractors may give you access to additional rebates or financing options, such as contractors approved through Tech Clean California or those who are registered for PACE lending. And then last, we want to highlight that switching to all electric products may result in the need for electrical upgrades, such as with outlets, wiring, or improvements to your panel. We wanted to give folks a general idea of the costs and incentives associated with our four major electrical products. Keep in mind this information can change. Funding can be exhausted, incentives could be enhanced or discontinued, so continue to check back on each individual resources we provide. Roseville electric rebates and federal tax credits are available now. Again, this is as of September 2023. And participation is high in the Roseville programs, so it is possible for funding to run out before the ending of our fiscal year at the end of June of 2024. Tax credits are based on taxes owed. They reduce what you owe, can only do one heat pump a year, either HVAC or water heater. Tech Clean California has a heat pump HVAC rebate now. Again, this is as of September 2023. And plans to launch a heat pump water heater rebate around October. Federal rebates through the HERO program are anticipated early 2024, and these are income qualified. We don't have the full details on these programs yet, but they are expected to be offered at point of sale. With incentives, it's possible in some cases to purchase and install these products at a comparable or cheaper cost to their alternatives.
Great. And I just want to mention really quick, I think I might have highlighted the wrong area at one point. So when we're talking about what incentives are available now, it's the Roseville Electric incentives here and then the federal tax credits. I think I might have highlighted the rebates, the federal rebates for a moment, but those are coming a little bit later. We're expecting those again in early 2024. So I'll move on to the next slide here.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel.
Mhm.
Here are the links to the direct sources for the incentives: Roseville Electric programs, Tech Clean California incentives, and federal incentives and rebates, which we strongly recommend talking to a tax professional if pursuing federal tax incentives and checking if your income qualifies for the federal rebates. Again, for product requirements to qualify for incentives and potentially stack incentives, we recommend asking your contractor. If you feel like you don't quite have the cash to complete your electric appliance installation, there are several financing options. Each has advantages and disadvantages, which we put in this table for your reference. If you've heard of PACE loans, know that many additional consumer protections have been put into place since they were last authorized. Also know that many contractors may be partnering with banks to provide shorter-term 0% interest loan options. Even if you do spend a bit more on the install for an energy efficient all electric product, you may be able to recover some of those costs through utility bill savings. In 2020, our evaluation was that an average customer could save up to $400 a year through having all electric appliances. We do want to note that this isn't a cost savings guarantee and that each home will differ. We recommend working with your contractor to provide more tailored utility bill savings estimates. Actual savings will vary depending on household size and usage. And keep in mind this study is from 2020 and costs have changed. And now, Rachel will continue the presentation for the next few slides.
Thanks, Sarah. So as we discuss these four products, we want folks to be aware of which conversions require more electrical work. So depending on what product you had previously, switching may require installing a new outlet and wiring. So if you're starting with a gas product, you typically have an outlet and or hard wiring for 120 volts. That's the voltage delivered by a standard home outlet, which we're showing here. So if your replacement appliance is electric, you are typically looking at switching to 240 volts, which again could be a different outlet, one that's larger, or it could be hardwired. But we should note that there are 120 volt options for heat pump water heaters and induction cooktops that you can ask for. So here and here. So many folks are finding that converting to all electric for their space heating and cooling is also one of the easier conversions since you're already at 240 volts for an electric HVAC, even if you have a gas furnace at 120 volts. So you likely have that in place. And then if you already have a standard electric product for water heating, clothes drying, or your cooktop, converting to an energy efficient heat pump or induction cooktop should be easier since you already have the 240 volts in place. Now, I should mention that the exact plug shape and wiring gauge is also dependent on the electric amperage needed, which we'll talk about in a minute. So a lot of folks want to know if replacing all of their gas appliances with electric ones will mean that they will have to replace their electrical panel. And the answer is typically no. So homes built after 1980 generally have a 200 amp panel, and typically a 200 amp panel can accommodate all electric appliances. You can still have this assessed with your electrician, but generally you'll be okay on 200 amps. Now, older homes built before 1980 are more likely to have a 100 amp panel or less, and they may need some electrical upgrades in order to choose all electric products. If you do end up needing a panel replacement, there are incentives available to help with the cost, at least at the time of this recording. And then there are many ways to avoid a panel replacement as well. So if you're on a budget or completing an appliance replacement where you don't have time to take on the additional project of a panel replacement, then you can ask your electrician for other solutions that could help you avoid a full panel replacement. So some of those items are listed here. You may just need to rearrange your panel's breakers and maybe install tandem or slim breakers. You might be able to bring low-powered LED lighting into one circuit. You could consider load sharing devices or circuit pausers that can help you have higher amperage devices and just choose to have one turn off or pause when the other is on. And so you can have smart devices that do that. A good example would be a EV charger, an electric vehicle charger, and a dryer. You could have a system where that's using the same plug and the same circuit, and it decides that both of those items will never be on simultaneously. And so many people might choose to have their EV take a break for a few minutes of charging while their dryer turns on, and then have the system automatically turn the EV charger back on once the dryer is done drying clothes. Another option would be looking into a sub panel if you need circuits and not necessarily, it's not a situation of running out of amperage. That could be something that you ask for. And then as far as if you do end up doing a full panel replacement, a smart panel could be a great option to have your whole house have smart load management built into your electrical panel. So we'd like to know if you can avoid a panel replacement, you can save thousands of dollars, which could give you the necessary funds to purchase more efficient appliances. But you should also consider what panel and electrical needs you might have in the future. So, in some cases, a panel replacement will be the best long term solution. And in other cases, you may be able to fully electrify all appliances with some lower cost electrical solutions. So, just make sure you are talking to an electrician who can walk you through either option and advise you on which will be most cost effective in your particular case. So one of the ways to avoid a panel replacement is by choosing appliances that run on lower amperage. So we talked about voltage, which dictates what plug type you might be using. Again, in some cases, appliances are hardwired, so there might not be any plug at all. And when we were talking about voltage, we're talking about the electrical pressure being supplied. Now, on the other hand, when we're talking about amperage, we're talking about how much electricity is being delivered in a particular instance. And so, where your home has overall electricity constraints, is the constraint of the total amperage that can be supplied to your home at one time. And again, that limit will depend on your electrical panel. So when you're replacing appliances with all high amperage appliances, you might be moving towards a point of needing a panel replacement. But if you were to replace or add appliances that are lower in amperage, you could strategically avoid a panel replacement. Now you'll see from this chart here, in some cases, efficient electric appliances may require less amperage than your current appliance. And if you look towards the right of the chart, you'll see that you're adding, if you were to add an EV charger at any time soon, there's a pretty big range of what amperage you could be choosing. And that includes some really large amp options, like up to 50 amps, that you might choose to install. But we just would like to advise folks, there are some options that get very large on the amount of amperages that you could be purchasing into. And overall, it's a good idea to work with your electrician and plan if your panel will have room for all of the eventual electric appliances that you plan to install. So next, we'll be discussing each of the four electric appliances in more detail, and Sarah will get us started by talking about induction cooktops.
Great. The first electric appliance we will go over is the induction cooktop, which is different than the standard electric cooktop in that it heats through magnetism, meaning that the cooktop itself does not heat up, and instead the magnetic field heats the pots and pans directly. The glass surface does not get as hot as a traditional electric range and will not heat up on its own without the induction cookware sitting on top of it. Induction cooking is responsive, precise, and cooks food faster. There are no open flames for fires or heat escaping, which reduces risk of gas leaks and carbon monoxide poisoning, and reduces benzene and nitrogen dioxide emissions. And they are easier to clean because of the smooth glass surface. Some considerations for induction cooking are you may need to use an analog meat thermometer, and you'll want to check with your doctor if you have a pacemaker because you might need to avoid this purchase. Not all pots and pans can be used with induction. You can see in this picture on the side which kinds of pots and pans that you can use. Many products add a magnetic layer at the bottom of the pan to create an induction compatible pan. So if purchasing new pots and pans, you'll want to look for an induction ready label. A trick is that for any pots and pans that you already do own, if a magnet attaches to it, then it will work with an induction stove. We Make sure the circle hob size matches with the size pans you're hoping to use as well, because you can't put a larger pan on a smaller circle hob the way you might with another appliance, because the part of the pan that is larger than the hob will not heat up and cook the food, which makes for uneven cooking. Some models do make a buzzing noise at high heat or a clicking noise. So if you aren't bothered by clock noises or an overhead fan noise, this may not be an issue for you. And you can always look at product reviews for noise complaints. We've mentioned heat pumps a few times in this presentation so far, but before getting into heat pump clothes dryers, water heaters, and HVACs, we wanted to go over what kind of technology the term heat pump refers to. Almost everybody owns an appliance that functions with similar technology. That appliance is a refrigerator. The core of heat pump technology is very familiar. It's an appliance that uses refrigerant to absorb heat to either remove the heat from a system or feed it back into the system. So the first heat pump we'll be discussing is a heat pump's clothes dryer. They are closed loop systems, heating air, reusing that hot air, and removing moisture through an evaporator. These appliances have a longer expected lifespan, may be easier to install in certain locations since venting is not required, and the way they function reduces fire hazards. This product may not be the best fit for a large family looking to complete several loads of laundry in a few hours because heat pump electric dryers typically take up to twice as long to dry laundry than gas dryers. But heat pump electric dryers dry laundry at lower temperatures, and so they are gentler on clothes. This appliance isn't a perfect product at this time, but if you are set on getting rid of all of your gas appliances, you could always choose a standard electric dryer, which can dry clothes faster than the electric heat pump version. Just know that these won't be quite as energy efficient, and thus we aren't able to offer a rebate. And now Rachel will finish up the last part of the presentation for us.
Thanks, Sarah. Let's see, I'll move on to the next slide here. So next we'll be talking about heat pump HVACs and heat pump HVAC mini splits. So the way these work is they move heat rather than burning fuel, and they do this using pressurized refrigerant. And that refrigerant can run in reverse to either heat or cool your home. So you get a 2-for-1 appliance. It's both your air conditioner and your furnace. And these generate 3 to 4 times more energy than they consume. So they're highly energy efficient. And we do have a quick video that we'd like to play for you that explains a bit better. Let's see if I can move it over this way for you all to see. Oh, let me just full screen it. All right, here we go.
I don't think we can hear it, Rachel.
Okay, let me see if I can make the volume a little louder. Well,
Still not hearing it.
oh, you can't hear it at all?
No.
Okay. Well, sorry about that. We do have a link to the video in our presentation. So you're welcome to watch it in your own time. Some of these just help to explain the technology a little bit better, but we won't go through it if we can't hear it. So let's go back to the presentation here. I will mention one thing, which is with heat pump technology, a lot of folks do get confused by the aspect of capturing heat from the outdoors during the winter. And I just want to highlight that this is possible due to the low boiling point of refrigerant. So heat can be captured even when it's 0 degrees outside. And then if you do end up watching the video that we provided, just know that some of the savings information is national, so it's not Roseville specific. So we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so besides being energy efficient, heat pump HVACs are a better product in many ways. So whereas a traditional single stage HVAC that you might have is either on full blast or off, A heat pump HVAC can run for longer at lower energy draws to keep consistent temperatures and keep the air circulating and continually moving through a filter. So you get better air quality in your home because the system can continue running and continue going through your filter constantly. And then heat pumps also have a better ability to remove humidity in the summer to keep you cool, and then also add it in the winter to keep you warm. And since they don't have to run at all times full blast, they have a softer start, and they're quieter. So if they do happen to turn on in the middle of the night, they're less likely to wake you up. And then we also want to mention that ductless mini split heat pump options are pretty affordable, and can be a good idea if you don't have ducts in your home or if you don't want to spend money on replacing them. And I do want to highlight the pictures of these here. So this is a wall unit of a ductless heat pump mini split. And I wanted to show this, but also mention that if you're not interested in having this wall option, there are also options that install flush to your ceiling so you don't necessarily see them. I do feel like these look pretty nice the way that they're built, but for folks that don't want to have to decorate around that, there's alternatives. So just be sure to ask your contractor about that if that's a concern of yours. And then we do want to go over some considerations you'd want to make before jumping into a purchase of a heat pump HVAC. And the first is if you have a leaky home and you need improved air sealing through upgrades with weather stripping, windows, insulation, or ducting, not all heat pump models may be able to keep up with your home's leakage, since they typically work through gradual heating and cooling. And you can assess your home through a few tests that contractors can bring to you. One of them might be a blower door test, but you also may know as is if you have some of these issues. So this is something to consider if you're going with a heat pump HVAC. Now, you could consider tackling some of those air sealing projects at the same time as your HVAC replacement. We did note some federal incentives on our incentive slide that can help with those projects. And then the other option would be to consider the top tier technology for heat pump HVACs. And so overall, the technology that is most impactful for heat pump HVACs are whether or not the system is variable speed, or also known as inverter driven. And then the best of the variable speed and inverter driven systems will be one that's also fully communicating. So when we're talking about a variable speed heat pump HVAC, the aspect that is variable is the power provided to the refrigerant compressor. And then a system that's also fully communicating will have multiple sensors throughout the system that can provide feedback to the variable flow of the refrigerant and ensure that what's being released is exactly tailored to the needs of the home at the time. So these systems, the variable speed heat pump HVACs, and again, especially ones that are fully communicating, they're more likely to perform even if you have some minor air leakage issues. Again, still important to assess that with your contractor, but if that is an issue that you have, maybe just some minor air leakage issues, you don't have to count out heat pump HVACs fully, but you might need to look into the best of the best technology. And then overall, the inverter-driven variable speed systems, they offer the best efficiency since they can run on multiple very low power levels. They can ramp up and down in more precise increments than a single or two-stage system. And then they also offer the best comfort, which is very important. So these can offer the greatest temperature change, and they can also provide that temperature change more rapidly, so at faster speeds. So I think an important thing to note is that many variable speed systems should be able to offer around 40 degrees of heating or cooling, whereas many two-stage systems may only be able to provide 20 degrees of heating and cooling. So definitely points towards the inverter-driven systems. And then these appliances are like having a car that runs on freeway miles, so they can last a bit longer because of that. In some cases, a lot longer. And then while the technology itself may be more expensive, you may not need to replace your HVAC with the same ton system that you currently have. So in many cases, we're seeing that folks are able to size down when they go to the inverter-driven system. And so you could save costs on sizing down, even if you're paying more for the technology. And then last, we do want folks to be aware that there are some tips and additional thermostat configuration that your contractor should walk you through if you have a heat pump HVAC installed. So don't let your contractor forget to provide you with that valuable information on how to use your thermostat and potentially set appropriate set points. So next we'll move on to the heat pump water heater. So again, similar technology, talking about heat pumps. These are using refrigerant lines to transfer heat from surrounding air to water in a tank. And they do have a longer lifespan. They can last up to 15 years. And we are seeing that 10-year warranties are pretty common with this technology. Again, there's the benefit of having no open flames when moving to electric technology. And then these do also release cool and dry air. So some folks like that, they have theirs located in the garage. It can be beneficial during the summer months. And they are up to 3 times more efficient than a traditional electric water heater. So again, this is different technology than your standard electric water heater when we're talking heat pump. So the main consideration you'll want to make prior to installing a heat pump water heater, the main considerations are in regards to the appliance location and ensuring that there's sufficient hot water. So again, these do work on having airspace available. So you would need 700 to 800 cubic feet of airspace. Often if folks have this located in their garage, they have sufficient airspace. But there are other options to make sure there's adequate air available. So louvered or undercut closet doors can also be an option. And then there are also split systems with compressors outside and a tank in its original space. So a few options for that. And then also in regards to location, heat pump water heaters are usually taller than other systems. So you might need to look and see if there's adequate height space above your current system. And then contrary to a heat pump HVAC, which is quieter than a traditional HVAC system, the heat pump water heater is actually louder. So there is a bit of noise that can be produced by these appliances. And so the location might be important depending on if you have your water heater, let's say right next to a bedroom. So in some cases, people do relocate their water heater due to some of these scenarios. And so that is where you're looking into additional cost if you're looking into a relocation of where your water heater is installed. And then as far as the sound issue, you can also look for product reviews and choose a water heater that it emits less sound. But again, many people don't find that the noise is an issue if there's different rooms in the way of where you're living your daily life or where you're sleeping. You might not ever hear it, but just know that the appliance does make noise. And then with the second consideration of making sure that you have sufficient hot water, so that's in regards to the way that the heat pump works with reheating water more gradually. So if you think about a gas water heater that has 50 gallons and a heat pump water that has 50 gallons, you do have the exact same amount of hot water. Now, let's say you currently have a gas water heater and occasionally you run out of hot water. And let's say you wait a few minutes and you're able to have the next person in your family take a shower. There's hot water again. Or you can run your laundry and you're fine after just a few minutes. So what's different here that you have to consider is reheating the entire tank does take longer with a heat pump water heater. And so what folks tend to do is size up their tank so that they're just less likely to run out. So if you're running out of hot water at all currently, the advice would be to go ahead and size up your tank with any next install that you do. And then the other option that you could consider is asking about a unit with a mixing valve. So a unit with a mixing valve would allow you to have the water in your tank stored at a higher temperature, and then it's mixed with cooler water when it's delivered to you. And so it's effectively like sizing up your tank. And then the last option that can help ensure that you have sufficient hot water would be choosing a hybrid water heater. So that's a system that would have backup electric resistance heating. And the only thing we caution folks on that is at times these systems do have a manual override where you would turn the electric resistance version of how the appliance operates on, and you'd have to remember to switch it back to the heat pump mode. So if there's something manual on your water heater to switch to electric resistance, we just warn folks, don't forget to turn it back. Otherwise, you're not getting the energy efficiency from the heat pump that you purchased. All right, and then next we have our summarizing advice. So we'd like folks to think about if you are replacing an appliance soon, consider that you have this opportunity to fuel with renewables and hydropower over the next several years. Sometimes this is a 10, 15-year decision or longer versus being stuck with a fossil fuel only supplying the power to your appliance. So a big choice there, and it would affect you for quite some time when you're making your choice for your next appliance. And then we hope that after seeing information on some of the incentives available, that you won't rule out energy efficient electric appliances due to the assumed cost. So really look into which incentives you might qualify for, and you might find that once you stack those together, you really do have around the same cost available for your appliance, or you might even find that it's cheapest if you go with one of the energy efficient electric appliances. And then we also want to advise folks to make preparations prior to appliance burnout. So if you think about the situation that you might be in, if your HVAC system suddenly stops working in the middle of the summer, or if your water heater burns out on you, you really want to repair and replace that appliance as soon as you can, right? Because those are essential things that you need in your home. But if there's electrical work that you need to do in order to accommodate the all electric appliances, or if you don't have a contractor in mind or one that you trust, it might take longer to get out of that situation where you suddenly don't have heat or cooling for your home or hot water. Um, so we'd just like folks to consider that electrical work can take time. So you might want to consult your electrician now. If you have an appliance that's nearing that end of life, consult someone now that can help you evaluate what products you can consider, what space you have available on your panel. If you do have to do any pulling of new wire. So all of that is important to consider. And then it is important to get multiple quotes and make sure that the recommendations that you're getting from contractors all make sense. So by talking to multiple contractors ahead of time, maybe finding one that you trust, one that you find that their quotes are reasonable. It's nice to get some of that work done ahead of time so that if you have a product suddenly burn out, you know who to go to for that replacement and have an idea of how much that will cost. And then with that, we'd like to thank you all for watching. So we do have some information here. Again, the 91679 power number, if you'd like to give us a call. And then we also have our web page that lists all of the rebates that we have available. Again, rebate the levels and requirements can always change. So we do recommend visiting that site often. So roseville.ca.us /rebates. And again, with that, let's see if I can get to my recording section. But we just would like to thank you all for watching.